the story. Genesis 6 was about what? Start of it all, right? Men begin to multiply. And I got all my numbers right finally. So before the flood, scientists or whoever, however you would do the calculations, they estimate about 1 billion people by the time of the flood. Like there was a lot of people. Like men, they begin to multiply greatly on the earth. 1 billion, that's a lot of people. Okay,
Yeah.
and so now starting over again, and it took us all the way up to 1804 or 1840 to get to 1 billion people again. That's how much time. So from creation to Noah, there was already 1 billion people. From Noah to until 1800s was there 1 billion people again. That multitude greatly, though, think about in Revelation, I just can't help but think that's one of the signs of end times is how fast and multiplying we become at such a rapid pace. 1800s.
Yeah.
It's only a couple hundred years ago. 1 billion. And then 1900s came to 3 billion. And then all of a sudden now we're at 8 billion people in the world. That's a lot really fast. But then there's a lot of speculation and theories on there wasn't as much water on the earth as there was after the flood. Like a lot of the oceans and how much water is on the earth now is literally a result from the flood. And we'll get into it a lot, but the world now is a different world than before the flood, right? Noah stepped into a different world, the same world that we currently live in, as opposed to pre. And so, grace through the waters of judgment, setting the scene, the righteous man and the coming judgment. Genesis 7, 1 through 5. Let's read it first. Then the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark, you and your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals, male and female, or male and his mate, and a pair of the animals that are not clean, and male and his mate, and 7 pairs of the birds of the heavens, also male and female, to keep their offspring alive on the face of the earth. For in 7 days I will send rain on earth 40 days and 40 nights, and even every living thing that I have made I will blot out from the face of the ground. And Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. Yeah, so that all that lingo we don't even get to until God starts laying down the law.
Yeah.
But what what the law starts coming in and saying is there's certain animals you don't eat. Those are unclean animals. There's certain animals you do eat, clean animals. That is changed once Jesus comes. There is no more clean and unclean. But a lot of people still hold to the whole kosher thing.
Right.
That's still clean and unclean.
Okay.
God's command to enter the ark marks a transition from preparation to preservation. So from preparation to preservation. We just glaze over it, right? We just think that, so the Lord said to Noah, go into the ark, you and your household. What I find interesting though too is when I remember reading this, it wasn't too long ago. It wasn't even preparing for this, but I was just like, we know the famous story is Noah's Ark. It's the 2 of each animal, like male and female. But then we start reading, and there's all these 7 pairs, and like 7 of this and 7, and like, wait, where are all these coming from? So why do we know? Has anyone done any study like why is there more than just 2 pairs, a male and a female? A lot more animals, because then that creates a problem because people want to push back on Noah's Ark as being a myth, a fairy tale because of like how could all these animals fit on this boat?
Well,
and all of a sudden there's more.
And,
Yeah, and I forget the mathematics of that too. It was really interesting, but they said that to get every single different variation of animal that we have now, it only would have taken it wasn't even that many.
it was just the dogs. It was
But yeah, it was only it wasn't 8,000, but it was something really low like that. It would only have to be these certain animals, like 8,000 different kinds of animals, to then spur on every single animal that we have today, which is pretty wild to think about. But again, God's pretty magnificent, so it's not that hard. Righteousness by faith, Noah's obedience flows from faith. So the ark is built. Go into the ark. You and your household, you've seen you righteous in this generation. And notice how it's this generation. And I don't know if we talked about it when we first met Noah, and the Bible's claiming him to be righteous. And some believe that he was obviously a follower of God. You see, it says he walked with God, but it also could be as simple as his gene line not being corrupted, because that was what was going on. It was this whole fallen angels and women and God's image being corrupted, And so Noah and his family, because it doesn't say, if you notice, it doesn't say his family was righteous. It's Noah is righteous and his family are like welcomed into that righteousness as well. But also their gene line potentially isn't corrupted, because that's what's the whole point. So it could be a combination of both, or it could just simply be he wasn't messed up yet. His image, God's image in him wasn't defiled yet. So Noah's obedience flows from faith. Somebody go to Hebrews 11:7. Hebrews, New Testament. I like getting into the New Testament as much as we can as we're in the Old Testament. That kind of verbiage is going to be, we're going to see it over and over again in the New Testament or in the Old Testament, and this is why people still think today. And I'm not sure. I don't have a stance on it yet, but like let's just say if a man is a follower of Christ and the rest of his household isn't, that they will all be saved, because there's so much household talk in the Old Testament saying Noah was righteous and his whole household is saved. You know, that kind of idea spurs on all throughout the Old Testament. So it's a really interesting theory, because it's like, interesting, how would that work? You know, it's like your family's saved because of your faith. You know, like, is that real? But it's a cool thought. Well, and we see it today. I mean, the very world that we were just talking about, right? This whole addiction world. It's like, I ask my groups a lot, be like, hey, whose family, or mom and dad who are still in active addiction or who are also addicts, and 99% of their hands go up. And it's like, yeah, this is that generational curse. And I try to encourage them, like, man, you're breaking chains here, man. If you can be the one to stop it, and then you raise your children up in a different way, like that's a big deal, Whatever strength you can gather from that, gather it. Grace before judgment. God provides a way of escape before unleashing his wrath, right? So remember, these are all pictures of Christ. And we'll get into more specifically what each thing represents. But obedience and readiness. Noah enters when told. Right? He didn't just say, all right, ark's done, let's go. Right? He's waiting for that command of God. That's what I was trying to bring up earlier that I couldn't remember. Brain fart. I think I was getting too hot. My brain was frying. Noah enters when told. Faith responds in action, not delay. Waiting for God's perfect timing. Application on just this little part is God's warnings are acts of mercy. Right? So people want to, even today, doesn't matter what conversation we're talking about, people want to focus on the punishments, the judgments, the wrath of God, as opposed to be like, no, but you're missing the point. He made the way out, right? It's just like Noah standing on the boat saying, hey, man, there's going to be a flood happening. You guys, you can get on the boat and be saved, right? And instead of going on the boat, they just laugh and mock him. And it's like, okay, I can't believe God killed the whole world. But it's like, yeah, but he made the way out, yeah.
He let anybody that wanted to get on the boat get on the boat?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that would mean they had faith in what God was saying. Literally, I mean, we're going to get there later on, but there's this whole another freaky story that it's going to be really fun to dive into. But the Israelites being disobedient, per usual, and so God allows snakes to come in to start biting the Israelites. And for salvation, God has Moses hold up a staff that has a snake on it, and he says, all you have to do, whether you've been bitten or not, but to be safe, is just look upon the snake, and you'll be saved. You'll be safe. It's like these little things. So what's our reaction? What's our response now to be saved? We just believe in Jesus. Now, that belief should come with a lot of action in our life, not for saving's sake, but you're a son of a king, daughter of a king, act like it, right? So we have good works to do, but that's not saving us. All we do is say, God, I put my trust in you. Forgive me my sins. Give me the power and strength to live each day. So it's like these really get on the boat and you're saved. It's always such a simple act of coming judgment from God to be saved from. God's warnings are acts of mercy. Recovery and faith require obedient preparation before the storms of life hit. Flood begins. Judgment and separation. Genesis 7:6-24. All right. And this is the rest of the thing. We'll break it down after we read through it. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came upon the earth. 600. And Noah and his sons and his wives and his sons' wives with him went into the ark to escape the waters of the flood. See, again, maybe they weren't as righteous as Noah, but they had faith to go with him, right? They could have been like, no, you're crazy. I can't even believe I've been seeing you build this for 120 years. Absolutely not. Nope, they got on. Verse 8. Of clean animals and of animals that are not clean, and of birds and of everything that creeps on the ground, 2 and 2 male and female went into the ark with Noah, as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. So they were in there 7 days with nothing happening. Talk about a time of potential, like, uh-oh. That was actually crazy. Dang it. Right? 7 days just chilling. Stinky animals. No water, no rain. Yeah. In preparation for this, I was listening to a pastor speak on this. And he says, I don't know why we'll go to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, or Hebrews or Romans. Exodus. We'll read all these other books that should be rightfully taken literal. Now, there's certain times in the Bible we don't take it literal. It's poetry, right? There's certain places in Proverbs. There's Psalms, which is poems, and right these images that are we're supposed to take a picture of something so we can understand a deeper truth. Revelation, apocalyptic literature, right? There's certain things we don't take literal, but the books we should be taking literal, we take literal, except for Genesis. All of a sudden, Genesis we start talking about, and everyone's like, "Oh no, that's just a picture. Oh, that's just a story that we're supposed to take some," because there's the whole you guys know the not worldwide flood but a local flood theory, that it was just this portion of the world that was flooded, not the whole world. You heard that? Yeah. Now there's some good arguments for it, but I think there's overwhelmingly arguments against it. And so, even just the simplest one is at the very end, what happens after the flood? What does God do? He promises what?
No more flood.
Never, not to destroy all flesh from the world in that manner again. Okay, well then, if it was a local flood, then that seems like a weird promise. It's like there's a very...
Floods still happen. Local floods still happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so, before Jesus comes back, it says it's going to be like again in the days of Noah. Mankind is not, we are the same over and over and over again. And like when we did our study in Revelation, it really pointed to the fact that the human heart doesn't change. It's not about what's going to happen. It's like what's always happened, what is currently happening, and yes, what's going to continue to happen. And then one day, finally, it's going to be enough, and God's going to be like, okay, it's time to set everything right now. There's going to be finally that final time. And so I brought the whole literal thing up because it says every person was corrupt and only thinking evil thoughts continually. There's no other way to take that. Yes, 1 billion people, minus 8, were evil through and through. Whether that mean that every single gene line was corrupted by fallen angels? Probably not. However, the impact that those Nephilim had on people around, everyone was just buying into it. Everyone was drinking the Kool-Aid. And so it's just evil upon evil. And remember what we talked about. Evil isn't like, oh, they were just full of pride and gossips. And sure, there's some adultery going on. No, we're talking like the worst things you can think of and things you don't want to think about.
Like what?
Cannibalism and bestiality and, sacrifice, human sacrifice. Just the evilest of evil. That's the kind of stuff going on. So God's like, yeah, they're gone. And so we can't, hold hands across America saying, oh, the people that God killed in Noah's day. No, man, if you saw them today, you'd be like, oh my gosh, kill them now, please. That's just, there's nothing good, nothing redeemable about them. Oh, they saw, and this is why I think it's silly for people to be wanting a sign from God or just, why does God hide himself? Or why doesn't God show himself? He's like, because we've already been there. And again, our hearts don't change. God could come down, and guess what? He's going to come down one day, split the skies, and people are still going to, they can't deny that he's God anymore. They can't deny that he's real anymore, but they're still not going to repent. But God was revealing himself in mighty ways already. And as we're going to say, the Israel, God's chosen people rebel over and over and over again. So much so that God removes his grace from them. His grace is still removed from his chosen people. But in Romans, it talks about it. One day he will bring them back. He will open up. He will receive them again in grace. And so, there's just something about our human hearts that are just so prone to wander and want everything else but God. Well, and that's the scary realization too, is there's not going to be one person in hell that doesn't understand that they deserve to be there.
Yeah.
And there's still not going to be a repentant heart, even in hell. I heard that theory once too, and I was like, ooh, that's eye-opening. Is hell is eternal because the sins continue. For 7 days, okay, so after 7 days they're waiting, chilling in the ark. Noah, are you sure about this? verse 11, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month of the 17th day of the month, and on that day, all the fountains of the cave. First of all, just stop. I love the preciseness of the Bible. Like God doesn't have to be cautious of being exact, because he's like, I'm God, I'm perfect, and everything one day, or the more we discover about the Bible, and as it continues to be proven to be true and authoritative, and all these things, like we can, if there was a way to find out exactly what day this happened, which who knows what technology could bring one day, they'll be like, oh my gosh, in the 600th year of Noah's life, on the second month of the 17th day of that month, wow, spot on, like it's not afraid to be accurate. On that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. Okay, is anybody under the misconception that the earth flooded because of the rain? Is that what we think? I feel like that's a general. Oh yeah, it flooded because it rained for 40 days and 40. No, yeah, it rained, but the oceans from the deep, and you know what they just discovered? You guys know about that? Because that was another critique for years. That'd be like, oceans from the deep. What are you talking about? There's no oceans in the. Yeah, they just discovered oceans underneath our crust that has more water than our oceans on top of the crust. Like, whoa! Yet again, the Bible saying things that nobody could have known or should know. That we're now like, oh, okay, yeah, the waters from the deep burst forth, and that's what flooded the world. There's waters under the waters, kind of idea, like, whoa, okay. Verse 12, and the rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On the very same day, Noah and his sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Noah's wife and the 3 wives and his sons with them entered the ark. They and every beast according to its kind, and all the livestock according to their kind, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, every winged creature. And they went into the ark with Noah, 2 by 2, all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. Verse 16, and those who entered, male and female, of all flesh, went in as God had commanded him, and the Lord shut him in. Another verse we can just glaze over. The Lord shut them in. It was the Lord's provision. It was the Lord's power. It was the Lord's timing. Shut them in the ark. Keep them safe, to save them. Verse 17, the flood continued 40 days on the earth. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. The waters prevailed and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heavens were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. Somebody looked up what that means for our understanding.
18 inches is cubic.
And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Okay, this feels pretty absolute, right? So the whole local flood thing, you have to get real liberal with that to believe it. 22, everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground, man and animals and creeping things, and the birds of the heavens. We were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. And actually, I don't know where it says it, they were actually on the ark for a little over a year, which is wild, because I feel like we think it's like this, just a couple month progress, but all right, so Noah was 600 years old when the flood came. The waters lasted 40 days and 40 nights of rain, a number symbolizing testing and cleansing. Remember, numbers mean something in the Bible.
Numerology, isn't it?
Yeah. The ark as a picture of Christ, okay? Only those in the ark are saved. Likewise, only those in Christ escape judgment, Romans 8:1. The ark presents God's mercy enclosed in judgment, his salvation within his wrath. Right? The boat is in the very thing that just wiped out and killed all of the evil on the earth and everything. So his wrath, but on the ark, floating in that wrath, was the salvation. They were safe. The depth of judgment. Water covers all the earth, even the mountains. Sin, which I heard something interesting about that, is not only... So there's proof that there is a very cataclysmic thing that happened, that science will blame this and that and the Ice Age and all these other things when we see what happened right here, right? It wasn't just the streams and blowholes of water bursting forth. No, the earth shook and cracked and shaped differently. So it could have been a very flat world before things broke and moved and shifted and, right? And so it could have been a very different, mountains weren't there's no Mount Everest yet, potentially. That would make a lot of sense. Sin's reach is total. God's cleansing must also be total, right? So the world was corrupted. So the world needed to be judged. Yet the ark floated on the face of the waters. God's people are kept safe above the chaos. Sin drowns everything not anchored in obedience. Okay, is the application part. Sin drowns everything not anchored in obedience. Sometimes God must allow the flood to destroy what's corrupt so new life can begin. When's the last time you feel like you've been pruned, or maybe you're going through some pruning right now, right, where God needs to do some refining, but you can't refine without fire, right? You're not experiencing God's wrath. God wants to make you into something more. God wants to make you look more like Jesus. He wants to brighten that light, shine you up a little bit. Faith doesn't mean avoiding the storm. It means riding through it in God's protection and by God's power.